Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird, true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 752, written by Psychological Box 577. Ice cold water from the ether. About a year ago in late June, I was over at my mentor's house. I do wildlife rehabilitation, mostly squirrels, coons, and possum. I was in the living room holding two baby raccoons, one in each arm, and Mrs. Gina, my mentor, was in the kitchen. All of a sudden, ice-cold water started pouring on my forehead. I started calling for Gina because I was completely dumbfounded and in complete shock. She poked her head around the corner and said she saw a stream of water coming from thin air and only about 2 inches above my forehead. It was about a cup of ice-cold water. Of course, we did the usual investigation. There was no condensation or evidence of any water on the ceiling. She had been in that house for over 20 years and never had a leak in the ceiling. I even tasted it. Nothing salty, just regular water. But since then is what really shocked me. I got off of pain medication after being on it for many years following 5 separate spine surgeries. I became a counselor. I left an abusive 13-year-old relationship and found the love of my life, bought a house and moved to the country. My life completely changed for the better. The turning point was the water. I believe that it was spirit water, holy water. Usually you are anointed on your forehead in religious ceremonies. People have long used ice-cold water as a means to wake someone up. I feel that it opened my third eye and was a literal blessing of sorts from the other side. This is my first time talking publicly about it. I'm interested to see what other conclusions people will come to. I think things like this are very fascinating. Ice-cold water from the ether. This is a cool and small one. It's actually kind of baffling. I mean, you said you checked for leaks, so it can't be a leak from the ceiling. If there was a leak, there'd be evidence of it. It's not like water could leak from the ceiling and then there'd just be nothing, no evidence at all. There'd be some kind of hole. The water weighs a lot, so if it actually breached the ceiling, you would see a giant hole, or at least a small one. And your mentor Gina said that she saw it. She saw water appear right above your forehead. I mean, you have an eyewitness right there. Unless it's some sort of elaborate prank, but how would you make water appear in front of someone's forehead? You'd have to get Chris Angel or Penn and Teller involved for this one. Also, this reminds me of a story I read a long time ago, where someone was sleeping and they woke up and next to their bed was a giant puddle of water, but there was seemingly no source for it. No leaks of any kind, not from below, not from above. It just was a giant puddle of water. No one broke in. There was no one around. He lived alone. He didn't have pets. There was absolutely no logical way there could be water there, but there was. What's up with water? Creepy file number 47, written by Dig Tac Bro. Stalked by a creature of pure dread. I work for my city's water department. My everyday job consists of repairing leaks or doing new installations for businesses and homes. There are 2 parts to our water department that keep everything running: distribution, where I normally work, and production. Production deals with the chemical side of things. They chlorinate the water and do water sample checks. Production is also responsible for the upkeep of our water well sites and our water storage facilities, like the tall water towers you might have in your city. Mowing grass is one of those responsibilities. Both parts of our department are extremely understaffed right now, so we sometimes give the production guys a hand with the grass when they need it. A couple of weeks ago it was my turn, and here's where the weirdness begins. My city is in central Louisiana with a population of about 45,000 people. We're surrounded by a wooded area. No matter which way you travel into or out of town, you're going to see plenty of trees. As such, a lot of our well sites are located out in the boonies. Most of our city trucks are 4-wheel drive with mud grips because it's needed more often than not. I had 4 sites to cut that day. I headed out just before sunrise to the one at the end of a long dirt road, where if trouble strikes, your phone better be charged because no one is going to be able to hear you yell for help. Surprisingly, this isn't where my strange encounter took place. The sun was rising as I was approaching my first site, and on the road ahead of me stepped out a doe with her 2 fawns. Excitedly, I hurried to snap some pictures. To my surprise, the mama and her babies were not afraid of the loud rumbling diesel I was driving. The speckled fawns made their way across the path as the mom calmly watched me in the truck. Once the babies were safely across, she looked back the way she came and then joined the little ones in the tree line on the opposite side of the road. I breezed through my mowing, loaded the equipment back into the trailer, and texted my mom pictures of the deer as I headed back into town. My mom messaged me back saying, "I've read that deer are an omen of good fortune. Looks like you're going to have a great day. Be safe. I love you." And I did have a great day. I knocked out the next 2 sites without issue and everything was going smooth. That is, until I reached the gate of the last place I had to mow. McKeithen's site is the biggest one we have that's closer to town. It's about the size of a football field. It's not in the middle of nowhere, but it is on the outskirts of the city. There's normally plenty of traffic that travels the road there, so there's really no feeling of seclusion, even though it's surrounded by thick woods on 3 sides. I've cut the spot plenty of times, but that day felt different. I pulled the truck through and hopped out to lock the gate behind me. Immediately, I felt like I needed to get back into the truck as quickly as possible. I made my way down the driveway to park near the tower, like I have many times before. But after I parked and killed the truck, everything felt heavy and silent. I don't know how long I sat until I was able to open the door and get out. Instantly, I felt eyes on me. The feeling was coming from the back right corner of the field outside the fence, just in the tree line where the palmetto bushes grow. I calmed my nerves and reminded myself that I was surrounded by an 8-foot unclimbable fence with the gate locked. Yeah, if someone had a gun, then they could have shot me if they wanted to, but they weren't going to actually get to me. If the barbed wire at the top of the fence didn't get them, a face full of weed-eater string and blades would. I jumped on the 0 turn and took off mowing, keeping an eye on the back corner during every pass. After about 2 hours, it took multiple runs due to the overgrowth. I had the entire front mowed and it was time to hit the back by the creepy corner. I was about to head that way, but the mower blades wouldn't engage. I had to take covers off, pull grass out of the belts and out from under the deck. I had to grease the pulleys and do all sorts of troubleshooting. I finally got the blades going, but then the gas light came on. I didn't realize it until later, but it felt like something was doing everything it could to keep me from going to that part of the lot. I finally got everything up and running and mowed the back as quickly as possible, doing everything I could to keep my sight on the fence. I finally got done and loaded the mower. I still had to do a little bit of weed eating around that area, but when the weed eater wouldn't start, I knew it was time to go. I hadn't had issue with it all day, but that was the last hint that I needed to get out of there. After pulling out of the gate and locking it behind me, I turned out onto the highway to head home, but not before looking at the back corner one last time. That's when I finally saw it, the unmistakable shadow of a figure standing in the palmettos. It wasn't trying to hide or make itself unseen. It was there. Being at a safe distance from it, I stopped and watched. It moved to the side as if it were bending to try to see me better at the road. It had no distinguishing features, no hair, no clothes, just a person-shaped mass. I decided I had to get as far away from there as I could immediately. The thought that I had been so close to it for so long and never saw it sent chills to my core. I called my mom later that night and told her what had happened. She told me she did some more reading about seeing the deer and learned that they are a sign of protection, that some people believe that a deer means that a higher power is watching over you. After my mom told me that, I couldn't help but think, what if I had not seen the deer that morning? Would I have seen the shadow? Would it have been able to do something to me? Why did it choose to show itself to me? Is it something about me, or is it tied to that part of the woods? My mom texted me even later that night. She was sitting out on our back steps in my old little hometown when she heard some rustling near her storage shed. She shined her light into the dark, and what stands there but a deer? Deer had never come into the backyard before, but that night a large deer stood tall, staring back at my mom. She told me she felt like it was there as if to say, "It's okay, he's safe, don't worry, we got him." Case notes for the creepy file number 47. Stalked by a creature of pure dread. So I don't typically put stock in fortune cookies or omens or anything like that. But I will say, every time I've encountered a deer, which is actually a few times in my life, I did have a good day after that. So it could just be coincidence, who knows? Maybe people have a good day because to see a deer, you typically are in a more rural, country environment that's more laid back. Maybe something like that. I also think it's another reflection on how powerful our subconscious is. You knew almost instantaneously as soon as you arrived on site that there was something there that wasn't meant to do you any good. How did you know? Your subconscious picking up on slight cues, maybe a slight ripple in the shadow of the forest, that your conscious mind wasn't being fed that information, but your subconscious knew. Towards the end though, why did it reveal itself? It didn't attack you when it had the opportunity to, after you were finished and exited the enclosure. So it doesn't seem like it was necessarily aggressive. Maybe indeed the omen you got from seeing the deer protected you. Or maybe it just wasn't aggressive, maybe territorial, and just didn't like other people being there. But sometimes it does feel like there's some sort of battle between good and evil going on, especially the last decade. I don't know if anyone else is getting that sense. And there's more entities and creatures and weird things going on, or at least more people are reporting them. Maybe it's just the reporting bias and fallacy, because more people are reporting things now that the internet is available.